Welcome back to the Cackling Jack podcast with our special Christmas episode where we have just recently taken a look at the recent release of Krampus, which actually took a very traditional approach to Christmas horrors. But within the last 10 years or so, it's become a bit of a tradition to take the lovable, jolly Coca Cola Santa Claus that we all know and love and sort of take a twist on it, give it a horror bent, turning the holly jolly fellow into a murderous, monstrous killer. Probably the most example that me and Mr. Letters here could think of is Santa's Sleigh,
hmm
starring former professional wrestler Bill Goldberg as a homicidal I guess you could say he's anti-Semitic Santa Claus because he
He's anti-human in general, but
yeah.
yeah, I think that this is a good one to lead off with because this was kind of my introduction to the great genre of funny monster Santas. And like you said, the premise itself is great. It's that Santa Claus, played by Bill Goldberg, is. I'm going to try to remember this correctly, and I've
He's
seen it
himself
like
a
five
Jewish
times.
wrestler, by the way. So
I was
Yeah,
gonna say Goldberg. What?
yeah, yeah. Who himself is Jewish and gigantic and scary. So the perfect guy to play an angry Norse devil. Because the best thing about the premise of this movie, I think, is the mythology. And what it is Santa is the son of the devil. The devil as in Satan from Christian mythology. But this is all revealed in some kind of ancient Norse tome that eons ago, the son of the devil was beaten by an angel in a game of curling, and so had to promise to be good for 1,000 years and give presents to children, and thus Santa Claus was born.
Wow.
And 1,000 years later, in the town of Hell, Michigan, of course,
Obviously.
Mm-hmm.
the 1,000 years is over, and Santa Claus is now free to become a demon, the son of Satan, and take his revenge on the angel. And it all leads up to another apocalyptic game of curling.
now for this one though,
Who said curling isn't a badass sport?
isn't the
I'll
twist
put that
that,
out there right away.
isn't the twist though with this one that Santa Claus has to be good for the rest of the year but can be evil on Christmas?
I wasn't. No. He still has to deliver the presents on Christmas. If I'm remembering this correctly, he has to be good straight through the 1,000 years. But Christmas was the day that it happened. So
Right.
it's the night of the Christmas 1,000 years from now that he must be freed from his chains, and the angel must try to beat him at curling again, and thus, contain the threat of Santa Claus to the world. And it's this biblical thing, but of course he's decked out in Norse stuff, and he's driving a battle sleigh driven by a giant buffalo.
Oh,
And
that's
the monster buffalo gets some of the kills in this movie too, which is also great. There's car chases with the monster buffalo. There's a chase on a snow speeder where the monster buffalo sleigh is overhead chasing them from the air, and Santa Claus is strafing the snowmobile with present bombs. What's the sport with skiing and trap shooting combined?
The biathlon.
I'll look it up to see if that's what it is. But guys who are doing that sport stop in the middle of their skiing and shooting event to turn their guns on Santa, and it's kind of an anti-aircraft effort.
Oh.
So we're kind of getting into the trivia here, but that's kind of the one that kind of broke through, and you can see kind of the different take that it puts on this whole thing. Whereas Max said, Krampus is a true horror movie with comedy in it because the premise is inherently crazy. But Santa's Sleigh is just all crazy comedy from beginning to end. And Mac, how would you describe the violence in this movie?
Oh, this is very much right there with the Sam Raimi, Peter Jackson splatstick type humor, only not to the exaggerated extent that both directors go. So it's very light splatstick.
Right, and it's funny because the opener. I've shown this movie to people at different times, and I've been told by normal people that the opener is a little brutal and can turn people off to the tone of the rest of the film.
That's my favorite part of the movie, though.
I've gotten some looks, man. I've gotten some looks. Where
Who
it's,
doesn't want to see Chris Kattan, Fran Dresser killed off in horrific fashion?
Oh, sign me up.
yeah,
Yeah, what?
How is this a turn on for people?
Right.
and that's kind of the funny part to show how many different approaches there can be to this. Because Sherry, did you see this one?
I've seen bits and pieces. Actually, now that I remember it, back in the day, you would actually send me random clips from this movie online. I'd be at work, and he'd send me this thing of Santa curling with an old dude. And I was like, what is this I'm watching right now? And so I've seen those parts of the curling scene when he actually opens up like a crack of the ice becomes hell or something like I don't know. But
Oh
yes,
yeah,
I've
the
seen
bullseye,
parts of
the
it.
bullseye and the curling becomes a hellmouth, of course.
Yes, that's it. Yeah. And I had no frame of reference for this. And yes, in the middle of the workday, that is certainly something to receive.
Right, and so this whole thing. This was from 2005, and Brett Ratner, of all people, it was kind of the person who moved the project through and got it going. It's a very well produced, slick kind of slapstick comedy. This would be an A-list comedy if it weren't starring a professional wrestler as Santa, the son of Satan. And like I said, the opening, it's funny because it's just like Krampus, kind of. It's the same premise. It's you've got this bitchy, dysfunctional, obnoxious family coming together for Christmas and just insulting each other and riding down each other and not enjoying the food and just annoying you. And then not 2 minutes in, Santa bursts down the chimney explodes. It's Bill Goldberg, and he starts just yelling naughty and punt kicking people into Christmas trees and setting them on fire by breathing alcoholic eggnog at them. And it's
Naughty!
yeah, it goes from being this kind of bitchy, quiet Christmas situation comedy into a total massacre in about 2 minutes flat, and it just goes like that. So I loved it, but that can be kind of a turnoff, I think, for saner people. So use with caution. I would advise.
Boring people.
Yes.
But the rest of the film kind of settles in and isn't that brutal. There's a lot of Christmas puns. There's a lot of verbal jokes. There's a lot of Scrooge jokes. There's an entire fight scene in a strip club where Santa goes in and tries to go I forget why he was in the strip club, probably just because he wanted to go to a
See
strip
the
club.
strippers? Duh.
Yeah, and he ends up fighting all the bouncers with the stripper pole and then putting lights on it and strangling one of them and then making it into a kind of a Christmas tree with a body on it.
Nice.
Oh my God, that's so great. Oh,
Yeah.
I can't wait to see this one too. You guys are blowing my mind.
And I have to look up who they were, Mac, but I don't know what you thought, but one of the cool things about it is this one, just like Krampus, is also carried by really good child actors.
Oh, I got to pull up the IMDb for that one real quick. Let me see, Santa Sleigh, because I remember Bill Goldberg. I remember the opening cast. I remember James Caan, which was a big surprise for me to see a big actor like him in this movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's Emile de Ravin, whose name I'm butchering, who kind of really carries the movie. And there's, let's see.
Oh, Robert Culp. Okay, yeah, now I remember. All right. Oh, and Dave Thomas. Awesome. I forgot he was in this.
Oh, hey, the whole gang is here. Yeah.
Right, and it kind of goes over everything in the book. Where Mac gets into the anti-Semitic Santa thing is that there's an entire section. There's of course a Jewish deli owner in the town, and there's a menorah kill, and their latkes are being thrown around, and there's a bunch of rabbis that kind of have a square off in the street with evil Santa, which is interesting because the Orthodox rabbis are the only ones Santa doesn't mess with. They kind of like high noon each other and then just kind of both walk away. It's a very funny, very weird moment. So it kind of takes advantage of every possible joke, pun, cheap gag, and it has lots of good gory. Well, not even gory, but lots of good violent slapstick in it. And it ends with curling.
Of course, that's the scene I remember.
That's how you kill the devil.
Oh yes, and the young actor Douglas Smith, who looks like a young Michael Shannon.
Oh God, that's right.
Wow.
And so that, as far as I know, Mac, we were discussing before we started recording, kind of kicked off. If that didn't kick it off, it's very close to when it kicked off. You know, the last 10 years, I've kind of seen a whole bunch of movies like this, where they kind of take evil Santa monster and turn it into very, very good comedy. And we're kind of like, you couldn't think of anything going back that kind of used this in this way. Like there've been, you know, you go back to Gremlins, there have been funny Christmas horror movies before. There's been monster rampages on Christmas. There's been serial
Killer Snowmen.
Yeah, Killer Snowmen, Jack Frost, of course. So you've got snow demons. You've got
what? I got that.
Mac, do you want to describe? Okay. So do you remember the stupid Michael Keaton movie where Dad is killed?
Okay, these are two separate movies. Okay.
Yes.
Yes. Different movies. That's not the same one.
Yeah. But imagine the sappy Michael Keaton movie where he comes back every Christmas as a loving snowman and then making cereal.
Kills everyone.
Yep, exactly.
Great.
Yeah. So there's been that, which is kind of more just a straight slasher movie. Although, of course, since it's hilarious, they make a lot of jokes in it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's been Christmas horror comedy before, but I think, Mac, we were discussing the last 10 years, and possibly with Santa's Sleigh, if you'd ever thought that this was going to kick off a trend, we're in the middle of, and Krampus is kind of a part of, this kind of comedy and Christmas horror on the big screen with a big budget, zany, crazy, self-referential stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it was actually ironically, this one's not on your list, but it's worth mentioning. The next year after Santa's Sleigh, we had a little horror gem called Two Front Teeth.
Oh my gosh.
And in this one, you have evil Santa Claus, who is a vampire.
Oh no.
Of course you do. Of course.
And of course, he's got his own little army of zombie elves, and it's up to, I guess, the people who are trying to survive evil Santa Claus with the help of scantily clad ninja nuns.
What?
Ninja nuns.
Yes.
We were all.
Are you sure this wasn't something you saw on Cinemax, right?
No, a friend of mine, John Cleveland, who is one of my bad movie bros. He's the one who introduced me to Two Front Teeth.
Yeah, as we discussed before the podcast even started, I've completely given up on using the phrase, "You're making that up." Because none of you are ever making that up. That's the punchline. And I know it now. I'm not going to be fooled again.
Good.
But yeah, it all leads on to a ninja throwdown between the evil Santa Claus, who's a vampire, and the good Santa Claus.
Oh, there's a good Santa Claus, too. Ah.
Adding to Amazon want list now.
And the funny story is my friend John got it as a joke present. His girlfriend at the time asked him, "What do you want for Christmas?" And as a joke, he said, "Well, my two front teeth." And she finds this movie by accident.
She found the movie. Oh my god. She's a keeper.
Hilarious. She's a keeper. Yep.
Wow. And of course, but after Santa's Sleigh, the next big one that I can think of and that I thoroughly enjoyed was the Dutch movie Sint, or Saint Nick, as it came to be known over here. And Sherry, I think you recently enjoyed this one, right?
I did, actually, just last night.
Okay, and this was
watched it.
2007, and it was exported here after it was made by a Dutch crew. And do you want to kind of explain where Santa comes from, where evil Santa comes from in this one?
Well, in this one, it takes place in Amsterdam. And in the year 1492, when Columbus sailed the ocean blue, there is this group of kind of roaming, what do you call pillagers? I'm not exactly sure what the group would be called back in that day. I'm sure they had some kind of historic basis. Mm-hmm. But they they enter the town, and there's a guy who's dressed up like St. Nicholas, and they basically pillage and ravage this town, steal babies, and kill people, rape the women, all that good stuff. And the villagers say, "We've had enough." And
right,
they
they're pirates, and what
they're pirates.
To understand this movie is they actually sail into some village outside of Amsterdam in a giant pirate ship, and they are led by Saint Nicholas. And this is the history of the film.
Yeah, and so the villagers rise up and they attack the Saint Nicholas's gang, and they burn the ship, which burns Saint Nicholas alive. Which leads to years later, the zombie pirate gang coming back to exact their revenge and collect more children's bodies. And except they also go for adults too. And we were taken to 1968, where a small little Dutch family, is attacked by this gang, and there's one survivor, this boy, the oldest son. And he comes back later in the movie. And after that scene where that family's attacked, we're catapulted to current times in Amsterdam. And it's, getting on to December 5th, which we all know now as being Krampusnacht.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of a tie-in to Krampus and St. Nick. Now, I will have to say that I did not have subtitles while I was watching this movie.
Oh.
And I don't speak Dutch. So most of what I saw in the movie, I kind of inferred from what was going on. And I think I got a pretty good handle on it.
Oh.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, well
this
done.
is how I'm going to watch it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
Right, and there's all kinds of little things in it, which now that I know that you didn't hear any of the dialogue, I think I can explain a little bit better for you.
Awesome.
Yeah. First of all, I'm 90% sure it's not a pirate dressed as St. Nicholas. It's that St. Nicholas was actually a pirate. And would sail the shores of the Netherlands like a Viking and go from house to house with his raiders, demanding children and demanding food and demanding money. And then if people didn't give him enough, then that's when he'd take their children. And this was supposed to be like, and then history got it wrong. And so, the Dutch celebration of St. Nicholas as someone who goes from house to house giving gifts is a misunderstanding of what actually happened. He actually goes from house to house, robbing, raping, and pillaging. So
as you do,
as
Good
Santa
stuff.
does, and he has, and again, it does happen on Krampusnacht, and he has a gang of St. Peters with him, and so yes, there is a parade of Black Peters in this movie, and they act like
Black Peters.
Mhm.
Yeah,
and they act like Krampi. Did we agree on Krampi?
yes.
For a flock of Krampuses, great.
Mhm.
And so they act like a flock of Krampi. And the thing is, they're not black because of chimney soot. They're not black because they're Moors. They're black because they burned alive back in the day. And this is their zombie form. So this is the story of St. Nicholas and Black Peter in this movie. And it's the same kind of thing. It's Killer Santa, but it's got a really different tone. Mac, have you seen this one?
No, but this is on my Amazon watch list, so I have easy access to it. So I'll probably get to it around Christmas time.
Okay, great.
I think you'll enjoy it. I really do.
And this one is more horror than Santa's sleigh. Of course, anything would have to be.
Excellent gore effects. Excellent gore effects.
Oh no, Northern Europe has always been pretty good with their horror movies lately. So yeah, I'm keen to check this one out.
Yeah, and great chase, and it's a Dutch Saint Nicholas, so he's on a horse and he's got a mitre and he's chasing people through the streets and he's jousting with police cars, and it turns into kind of a rampage monster movie by the end of it. And the comedy, it has a comedy tone, but that's mostly, it just points at the ridiculousness of the whole thing. And it's kind of like Adam Scott looking around saying, "What fresh hell is this?" over and over again.
Pretty much.
Would you call them teenagers, 20-somethings? You've got this gang of
they're college students.
Mm-hmm.
there's the protagonist, the main college student, who teams up with the gruff old cop. Or was he a cop in it? He seemed like a cop who was put on leave.
Yes,
Did I get that right?
Mm-hmm. If I remember correctly.
And he's very, this is the survivor of the family that was killed in the 60s.
Right.
And he has this, he knows exactly when St. Nicholas is coming back for the next round. Mm-hmm. And he's trying to convince everybody, and nobody will listen to him until he gangs up with this teenager or this college student who's experienced St. Nick for himself. And they're funny. They're hysterical together, the old man and the kid, of course.
Yes. A lot of the comedy is their banter, and a lot of the comedy is this, old man trying to convince the rest of the Dutch security establishment that St. Nicholas is coming to attack them. And they always just miss him. There's some destruction. They're like, oh, well, that was a gas fire. And St. Nicholas is gone just before the police show up, and this crazy old guy's running around shaking them up and down. It's Santa. He's come for us all. It's pretty
much.
So maybe you should see it with subtitles, because some of the jokes are pretty damn good.
Oh. I was still amused. Like, even though I really didn't understand what they were saying, I still got the gist of some of it.
Right. And then, of course, in between that and the next big theatrical release, there's been a lot of TV shows that use a Killer Santa episode. American Horror Story had one that was more straight. There was some old cop show I saw listed that had some kind of murderous Santa episode, but I don't think that was a monster. So, Sherry, you introduced me to this one, but there was an episode of the horror comedy show Supernatural that had kind of a monster Santa. Do you want to take us through that one?
Well, that was the original thought, and that's where I actually first heard about all of these, different Santas. Well, actually, the first time I heard about one of these alternate counterparts to Santa was on The Office, when Dwight Schrute dresses up as Belsnickel for Christmas, and to do an alternative Christmas party. And I just remember him coming in. He's dressed up as Belsnickel, and he goes, "Fear or cheer, Belsnickel is here." And it's the most ridiculous thing in the world. But Supernatural, before it got out of hand, they had some really great episodes. And this episode is a Christmas. It's a very supernatural Christmas, and that's the actual title of the episode. Mm-hmm. And there is this opening scene with this little kid, and he's greeting his grandpa at the door, and his grandpa is like, "I wouldn't miss Christmas for anything." And of course, what the grandpa does is he dresses up as Santa Claus to trick the kid. Only as he's putting things out on underneath the tree, there's noises on the roof, and he's kind of looking up like, that's not right. And something drags him up the chimney, and we don't see what that is. And so the Supernatural boys, Dean and Sam Winchester, come in to save the day, as they usually do. 2.0,
right?
Yes, more hair and muscles, and a lot more denim and flannel too. And Lindsay, I watched this show purely for character development, let me tell you. Sorry. And so they come into town trying to figure out what's going on, and their first theory is that this is actually a Belsnickel or a Krampus or, the bad Santa.
Right, and there's a lot of, they cram a lot, like the early seasons of this show, like anyone who likes crossovers between horror and comedy, again, it's kind of the production team of the X-Files coming back for another round, and it is very funny. There's good horror trivia. There's really good comedy in this show, and this is one of the better ones. And there's a lot of great banter in the beginning when Sam proposes all of these killer Santas. He's like, "Well, you've got Belsnickel, you've got the Krampus," and he brings up some of those cards that you mentioned, Sherry.
Yes.
The research into the lore of Evil Santa is those greeting cards, which is a really fun touch of the evil,
so funny.
The grandpa carrying off children.
Yeah. And of course, they're way off base. It's not that. It's actually old pagan gods that are hysterical in their own rights, who make torture hilarious.
And, as we've kind of laid out a lot in this episode and discussed a lot, Santa is always, and Santa's friends are always on the verge of becoming the pagan gods they were based on. So I definitely counted this one in my list of evil Santas because, the fact that they kill competing Santas to start with, and the fact that they are pagan gods that the Christianization of Christmas drove out. They have this really funny speech delivered in this Van Dyke kind of funny dad knows best dialogue. Because they're the stereotypical 50s wholesome family Christmas, let's exchange fruitcakes, let's make wreaths for the neighbors kind of things.
The
and
guy's
they're murderous
sucking on a pipe while he's torturing them. I mean, in Christmas sweaters. They're both wearing these really ugly Christmas sweaters while they're pulling out this, guy's fingernails. And you're like, this shouldn't be hilarious, but it is.
Right. And they're preparing pagan sacrifices, of course.
Yes. Good stuff.
That was definitely a good one. I think Lindsay and Mac, if you haven't seen this, it's on Netflix.
Okay.
Sherry, what episode is this?
This would be season 3, episode 8, A Very Supernatural Christmas. I think if you Google it, you'll be able to find it right away.
And it's hilarious.
And I'll probably put up a link or something on the blog that'll at least, give a breakdown of the episode, and maybe if I can find a link to the episode somewhere, I'll try and link that up.
Yeah, and I think I might like a clip from that one too. I think that one's going
Yes, I'll find some good clips.
So now we're up to 2010, and maybe the best in terms of filmmaking of these scary Santa comedy movies, Rare Exports, A Christmas Tale, which is a Finnish film that started out as did Evil Dead, and as did District 9 say. It started out as a short that a couple of young, ambitious filmmakers made about a concept of brothers in Finland who capture evil Santas and export them and make money by caging them, exporting them around the world to be used as mall Santas for authenticity. And they have a company that sells captured authentic Santa Clauses around the world.
Wow.
And someone picked this up. I don't know exactly the production history behind it, and eventually turned it into a full budget, full production film in Finland, and it came over here in 2010, and it's very, very good in my opinion. Mac, have you seen this one?
Yes, actually, and it's I was actually probably going to use this for my Volts at the Cold Christmas episode. Now I got to find something else, but yeah, I thoroughly enjoy this movie.
Yeah, can you kind of take us through the premise and how they turned it into a full movie and what the hell goes on in this one?
This, first it's there is a construction or like an excavation going on, I guess, for natural resources. And this excavation comes across this nest that unleashes this group of evil Santa Clauses. And they capture it, like, I guess the excavation captures one of them. And so really it's then just trying to understand what's going on here, where did he come from, why is he here? And it eventually leads to the kids who realize that, wait, this is the real Santa Claus. The Coca-Cola one that we're fed is a fraud. And it's from there that they start to, I guess, kill the head evil Santa Claus, which then pacifies the rest of them. And from there, they teach these formerly evil Santa Clauses to be good Santa Clauses and then ship them to other countries.
Right.
I don't know why that's hilarious. You can do the ha-has.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot going on in this movie, because I probably don't understand a lot of the Finnish context, because there's gingerbread breaking tradition that's a little bit different from our normal gingerbread cookies over here. There's all kinds of little jokes about Finnish Christmas traditions that I kind of want to know more about. And I think there's a lot of cinema stuff going on in here too, because this movie is basically The Thing with Santa. The whole thing is there's a mining operation, a research operation built on a mine, and there's an evil businessman trying to excavate Santa in order to take over the world or something. And Santa is this frozen monster under the earth. And he unleashes his minions, his legions of evil Santas, to go and gather children, so that I'm gonna guess he can consume them and come back to full power as
Probably.
the dark frozen god Santa Claus.
Sure.
And there's a lot, and like in Saint Nick, there's a lot of good jokes in this one about the kid and the father who know this is true, and then the father's hunting buddy. There's a lot of Finnish, not quite redneck culture, but just Finnish farming. There's a lot about reindeer farming jokes. There's a lot of rednecks with tons of guns jokes.
Very blue collar-ish.
Yeah, very blue collar guys who are trying to solve this monster problem. So that brought a smile to my face for a lot of other horror movies too. But a lot of it is these two guys both trying to convince people that they've found Santa Claus in the woods, feral, eating animals. And then trying to figure out what to do with the Santa and what to feed it. That's very funny too. It's just kind of like how to train. It's like E.T. but with feral Santa.
I was going to say it's like Nell. It sounds like Nell. Only with Santa.
Right. So there's that whole section, and then there's trying to hide Santa because they want to, use him for profit later. Then there's hunting down all the Santas when they realize they're dealing with the Santa-apocalypse.
Santa-apocalypse.
Yeah.
Is there a movie called Santa-apocalypse? If not, that's...
Don't give sci-fi any ideas. No.
Santa-apocalypse.
I mean, it's like, how there wasn't a movie called Halloween until Halloween existed. So this is kind of the same thing. Like, how is there not a movie called Santa-apocalypse?
Right.
U.S. Trademark Board, begin
Boom.
now.
If they can have a movie called Sharknado, they can have a friggin' movie called
Reindeer of Terror. Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
Mac is on a roll. I can't.
There's also Blitzkrieg, but we can go on that one later.
Oh.
God. So yeah, that was the latest and greatest until Krampus came out this year, and that's kind of the horror comedy tradition that it's building off of. And we are still in the middle of the boom, and I don't know about you guys, but I would never like it to end. And of course, we're also going back. Yeah, this also harkens back to a lot of others. I mean, for some reason, there's a reoccurring desire to make the Grim Reaper or Death into Santa. Nightmare Before Christmas is now a national treasure. I think this is one of the ones that. Did you guys all watch this growing up? Tim Burton's Nightmare Before.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Saw it in the theaters, man.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed it before Hot Topic took it over.
Right.
Mm.
So
that's a lot of Tim Burton, but you can't let him ruin it.
I'm going to tell everybody a secret and tell you that I've seen it. I have seen it.
Okay.
But not
You
until.
don't like it?
No, I actually did. And again, as a secret, I'm not a huge fan of Tim Burton, other than the original Batman. But I saw Nightmare Before Christmas on Thanksgiving with the nephews, and I loved it. It was like, I love Christmas, I love Halloween, so why the fuck have I never seen this before? What am I thinking? But so I'm converted. I'm totally converted. It was very good.
Well, it's okay not to be a total Tim Burton fan and still like Nightmare Before Christmas.
Sure.
I think Nightmare Before Christmas is kind of a anomaly when it comes to some Tim Burtons.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's its own unique brand of film. It's obviously a treasured child. Now, I did not particularly enjoy it when I first saw it as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I was like the only child who didn't. I wasn't a fan.
Oh yeah,
But as an adult,
I absolutely loved it as a kid. So yeah.
of course you did. I'm not surprised by that. But I found that as an adult, I can appreciate it way more than I did as a kid.
Right.
I don't know why.
Yeah, now that I think about it a little bit, it and the next one I'll just mention because we talked before and I don't think any of us have read Hogfather. But this is building off of another tradition, isn't it? Where, there's the Tim Allen movie, there's a couple movies from the 40s. There's a couple ones. There was not Jeff Bridges. What was the Santa Claus movie that I'm half remembering?
Tim Allen.
No. Well, Tim Allen was the Santa Claus, and there's Beau Bridges. That's right. That's why I was thinking of it. Is the
Yeah.
I have to look this up. I'm mixing up all my bridges. Next, I'm going to say the Bridges of Madison County is Santa Claus.
I like to see the dude as Santa Claus.
I want to see the dude as Santa Claus.
Oh my God!
Oh yes.
What?
Oh, let's
Yes.
go.
Amazing.
Hold on, it's coming up. It's coming up. Okay, no, it was Dudley Moore. I was way the hell off. Great. Okay.
Dudley Moore. What?
Oh, yeah, with John Lithgow as the creepy businessman. I kind of know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually really liked this movie as a kid just because it has really striking atmosphere and visuals. But there's this whole series of Christmas movies that are premised on the idea that Christmas can't happen because Santa Claus is missing or he's been captured. So someone has to put on the Santa suit and save the day.
Ernest Saves Christmas.
Ernest Saves Christmas, of course.
Yeah.
So that's a
Oh
whole
my God.
Yeah, and for some reason, like horror writers or genre writers like to put the Grim Reaper in as Santa, and apparently that is hilarious. And so far it has been. Hogfather, the novel, was actually turned into a TV film, which I've heard from several people is great and is now on my list to see before the season is up. But that's one where the literal Grim Reaper has to fill in because of a convoluted contract after Santa Claus is captured by a wizard assassin, and there are ghosts involved, and Death has to use the ghost to help him deliver the presents at Christmas.
Sure.
Oh, Terry Pratchett. I miss
you. Rest in peace, Terry. And that's kind of a different take on the Jack Skellington becomes Santa Claus thing. So I kind of want to see more like that. Is anyone else in favor of more Grim Reaper or Santa Claus films?
Sure. Why
Only
not?
if the Grim Reaper is really defined. like Terry Pratt, like I mentioned before we did recording, Terry Pratchett's Grim Reaper was extraordinary. He was so unique. He spoke in all capital letters, and he really didn't have much as a sense of humor went. And he takes on an apprentice, and he kind of learns his sense of humor as time goes, thanks to this apprentice and mishaps. But I'm not sure how Hogfather turns out. I do remember seeing that in the illustrations, like Death has a little pet mouse that is a skeleton, and there's the illustration has Death is a skeleton with a Santa Claus outfit on, and then there's the little rat skeleton with the Santa Claus outfit on, and it's so super cute. But that's the only thing I can remember about Hogfather. I've not read the book.
Right. And I just looked it up. Yeah, it was 2006 when it was made into, I guess, was a pretty successful TV film, and everyone I know who I trust loves it. So that puts it right smack in the middle of this kind of boom of this, grim, demonic monster Santa that's funny and relatable kind of thing. So I don't know, Mac, Lindsay, why now? Why does this only exist in the last 10 years? And why is there so much of it now, do you think?
I would say because you need something fresh. You do the same thing for so long, you kind of get that need to venture out further outside of your out of your comfort zone. And so really it's like, okay, what this has been done for so long, how can we change it up? How can we, add this or alter something to make it fresh again?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer is Santa hat.
Oh yeah, Santa hat, and put some tinsel on the scythe, and there you go.
And I think just with the whole, Santa as devil, Santa as mass murderer thing, in our society now, there's such a kind of lust for violence, and we're, as a nation and as a world, I think just pretty, what's the word I'm looking for? Sensitized? Desensitized?
Desensitized?
Yeah.
To violence. So we always need more and more and more of it. to satisfy this, primal lust and primal need to turn everything into a bloodbath. So, so I think that is probably part of it, and just, I don't know, we're crazy and we like, I don't know. I don't know.
To piggyback off of Lindsay, and also too, we're kind of at an age now where skepticism is a big thing, where we like to deconstruct myths.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at atheism now accounts for 20% of the population. So here we're kind of seeing this backlash, like, okay, we've believed this thing for so long that we now know really isn't true. Sorry to break it to you folks who are just finding out now, but
what?
Sorry, my parents made it very clear they were the ones who bought the presents and not some fat guy in a sleigh.
You want credit, damn it.
But yeah, the idea now that we're very skeptical and how we're no longer, I guess, indoctrinating children into these false ideas or believing these false idols, that now our media is adopting that mindset as well.
You're kind of wanting to kind of defang the thing, take it down a peg or two, take the sacredness away, you think?
Yeah.
People have more of an appetite for that these days?
Definitely.
Yeah, I do kind of want to see the version of Santa's sleigh they would have made back when they made the original Miracle on 34th Street.
Oh my God, that would have been great.
And how banned that would have been. How quickly.
Yeah, they could have gotten the French angel of Santa Claus for that one.
Yeah.
Well, I personally think that besides, social trends that make it more palatable to do this or kind of use it as a release valve or a way of kind of taking away false gods, well, I also think that we're kind of in an age now, I mean, all of us grew up in the age of, Mystery Science Theater and Monster Vision and kind of, cable and video, and now we're in the age of the internet and where everything is reflexive, everything is talked about, and horror fandom isn't, so much a tradition of just collecting things and kind of revering things anymore. It kind of has a sense of fun, both for better and for worse, that everything is kind of, torn down, reassembled compared to other things, like kind of what we're doing right now. And we're talking about, different combinations of horror franchises that should cross over and the inherent ridiculousness of this or that. So I think that kind of criticalness kind of reached it, because I mean, several of these started out as internet projects. Several of these films did. And so I think we're kind of in a place where horror fandom generally wants acknowledgement of the ridiculousness. That's why you have your Cabin in the Woods, you have your Tucker and Dales, you have these things in all these other genres. And I just love that there's a Santa Claus specific subgenre of this that's doing very well right now.
And so you're catering, you're bringing new people into the fold, like me, who, like, Christmas is genuinely one of my favorite things of all time ever. So if you put Santa in the role of a psycho killer or the devil or, a zombie pirate, I'm going to be into it. Whereas, typically, I mean, things have changed a little bit now with this whole podcast. You guys have converted me and everything, but, typically zombie pirate is not where I typically lean. But if you cast Santa as the zombie pirate,
yeah, now you're talking, right?
It's like, okay, I'm on board with this. So, so it's a good way to bring people into the horror fandom who maybe might not typically go there.
Well, and that's interesting, Lindsay, and I think we'd like you to pick up more on that in our next section, because I think that you're the perfect, I don't want to say guinea pig, but, guinea pigs are very adorable. I hope you don't take that.
They are.
They're tasty, too.
Wait a minute.
Right.
Delicacy.
But a good test subject for this theory that there is something inherently weird about Santa Claus that really deserves to be teased out, whether it's as serious horror, whether it's looking at Krampus, or whether it's just pointing out that we regularly teach our children to believe absolutely in a strange man in red who comes screaming out of the northern sky and sneaks into your house at night to judge you.
Does that? He's always watching you. That's the other thing.
As Max says, that kind of stands out in modern culture, and I think
He's got a list.
Yeah, and I think it's I think that deserves a better look at why Christmas might be inherently weird and creepy, and I think we can cover that in our next section.
Nearly scared him half to death. Had a rifle in his hands and cheap whiskey on his breath. From his beard to his boots, he was covered with ammo, like a big fat drunk, disgruntled Yuletide Rambo. And he smiled as he said, with a twinkle in his eye, "Merry Christmas to all, now you're all gonna die."